To make the dog bone towel holder, I started with the built-in template from In the Hoop Designer Software. Let's open up the template by clicking on the In the Hoop wizard in the upper left. Under Template, click Open, drop down to Kitchen, and choose Towel Holder 1. Click OK. I'm not going to make any changes here, so I'm just going to click OK, and it puts it on the screen. I'm not going to have any of this lettering or the design, so I'm just going to delete all of those. Now I wanted a dog bone at the bottom. I could find a SVG file or something that I had permission to use and bring it into the software, but I'm just going to draw my own. To create a dog bone shape, I'm going to use the drawing tools. Along the top menu bar, I'm going to click the drawing tools and rectangle. I'm just going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to select it, and over in the upper right, I'm going to click transform to see what size it is. I had made mine be 3 3/4 inches long by 1.5 inches high, and hit apply. To get the ends, go back to the drawing tool, drop down to heart, and then just hold the mouse down and draw out a heart shape. I'm going to select it, go back to transform in the upper right to see what size it is. I made mine 2.25 by 2 inches. Hit apply. Now I'm going to take this bone and I'm going to rotate it. I'm sorry, the heart shape, and rotate it. I'm going to place it at the end of my rectangle, copy, paste, and then mirror it. I'm going to take this one and place at the opposite end of the rectangle. I'm going to select all of it, and along the top menu bar, click Weld. And now I have a dog bone shape. I want to make sure that my shape fits my little towel holder, so I'm just going to grab it and move it over. And it looks good. So I'm going to place it about here. You can adjust it, move it however you want, but that's how I got the dog bone shape. I'm going to select the dog bone shape. I'm going to right click, convert to, and convert it to an applique. It opens up the applique window here in the upper right. I'm going to change the width to 4 millimeters because that's what I prefer, and also put a check mark in front of change colors and hit apply. I'm going to drop down to the color palette along the bottom and just pick a brown color, right click on it to change the color. And now there's my dog bone. I'm going to select this dog bone and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come to File, New, create a new page, and I'm going to paste it. We're going to come back and use this later. So let's go back to the original design page, and I'm going to take my dog bone, select it, right click, convert, and change it back to artwork. The first thing that we need is a new shape for a placement stitch that includes the dog bone shape. How the design is going to stitch is you're going to hoop water-soluble stabilizer, you're going to stitch the placement, you're going to put down fiber form on top of that placement, and then a tack down is going to come around and tack down that piece of fiber form. To create the new placement, I'm going to come over to the sequence window. First thing I'm going to do is click the plus sign in front of all the steps to open them up. So the first step, you can see this is part of our original placement. It's the rectangle going around, and then the other one is the placement for, it shows where the opening is going to be to put the towel through. So I'm going to select both of these and I'm going to hit combine. Now it's one piece. With it selected, I'm going to right click and convert to artwork. With that selected, I'm going to choose and click on the artwork of the dog bone. I'm going to come up to the top menu bar, click Weld. I'm going to move this over so you can see what it looks like. And now this is going to be the first placement step. I'm going to undo to put that back. Let's open this up and you can see this is artwork. It's only a drawing. It needs to be stitches. So to convert it to stitching, I'm going to right click, convert to a run. Now we need the exact same shape to be our tack down. So I'm going to come to the top menu bar with that first step selected. I'm going to copy and paste. While that pasted section is selected, I'm going to drop down to the color palette at the bottom of the screen, right click on any color that's just not the same color as the first step. That allows the machine to stop. So if we come over here into the sequence window, here is that step we just created. The next one is the original tack down. I don't need that. And I don't need the other one that is the tack down at the opening. So I can just delete that one too. At this point, I want to go to that page that we copied and pasted our dog bone applique shape to. So let me open up that page. Let me select the dog bone. Let me copy it. Go back to the original design page and paste it. You see it puts it exactly where it was. For the next step, let's take care of this satin stitch and the quilting stitch that are down here in our dog bone applique step. So with this satin stitch selected, I'm going to go to the upper left and click on the eraser. And we're going to just erase that satin stitch that's down here in the dog bone. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in on that, go back and grab my eraser, and I'm going to start about halfway into this satin stitch of the dog bone. And I'm just going to come down and start erasing. And really all I'm erasing is that line. It looks like I'm erasing lots of other things, but I'm not. And I'm going to stop about halfway into those satin stitches of the upper right of the dog bone. You see I missed a few, so let me come back here and let's erase that. Okay, so that takes care of the satin stitch, but we also have other placement stitches. This green line here is actually the step that would have tacked on the fabric on the back side of the original towel topper. So let's just come over here to the sequence window and let's select that. Go back to the eraser. I'm going to do the exact same thing and let me get that erased. It looks like it's erasing the dog bone, but it's not really. All right, now let's see what's left here. We have our quilting. Now I can't select the quilting. I'm just going to show you this. I cannot select the quilting and use the eraser. I mean, I can, but it kind of does a weird job of it. So to do this, first let me undo to get rid of that. With the quilting selected and the shape outline selected here in the upper left, you see that it put little nodes here. So I'm just going to start moving those nodes up here because I don't want the quilting stitching down here in the dog bone area. Let me zoom in on one of these sides so you can see what I'm going to do. Now to get this quilting to kind of shape the arc of this top of the dog bone here, with the shape tool selected, I'm going to add a point here and I'm going to move this one a little bit. I'm going to grab this point down here and I'm just going to delete it. I like to come back and add a new point in. I'm going to move it into the middle of that satin stitch there. If I go to this point here over on the left and I right click on it and I click line, you can see how it made a nice little curve there. I'm going to do the same thing with this node here, right click, click line, You can see now it made a nice little shape there. Let me just click off so you can see what it did. Now my quilting is where it should be, only on the upper part, except I'm going to use the hand and go and do the same thing over here on this side to get rid of this quilting here. I'm going to select the shape tool, click on that quilting. I'm going to right click to add a point there, and I'm going to delete this point down here. You know, there are other ways to do this. This is the easiest to me. I clicked and I added a point there. I'm going to move it up into the middle of that satin stitch of the dog bone. On this node, I'm going to click and then right click and then click line. You can see it made a nice little curve there. Do the same thing over here to get that same type of a shape. Click on it, right click, and click line. I might want to adjust this one a little bit more. And then click, and now you can see that my quilting is up here in the upper half only where it needs to be. Now if you notice, the quilting now, since I changed the shape of it, it's a little bit skewed. So I can click on it to select it, go back to my shape tool in the upper left, and you see this yellow line? This shows the direction of those stitches. So I'm just going to take this side of it, move it up, and I'm going to make it be like 0, or as close to 0 as I can get it. Click. We select it, and now you can see that it changed it slightly and kind of put them again how they were originally, going more vertically. So I wanted to get rid of that satin stitch that was down here in the dog bone, and I wanted to adjust the quilting so basically we can see how things are starting to look. The one thing that we still need is a placement and a tack down for the fabric that is up here in the upper part of the design. If we come over to the sequence window and we click on this step, this was the step that tacked the fabric onto the back side of the original towel holder design. Now we can use this to create our placement and tack down for the fabric that's going to be on the top half of this design. So with it selected, first thing I want to do is move it in front of the quilting step, because our fabric needs to be tacked down before it does the quilting. So all I did was select it, hold the mouse down, and drag it up. So now that it is in front of the quilting step, that's the quilting step. I'm just going to move this step out so you can see what it looks like. Remember, we had erased the bottom part of it because it was in our dog bone shape. So now we're going to redraw this bottom half so that it conforms to the top of the dog bone. So let me go ahead and undo to get that back in place. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm going to do down here. So you can see the little nodes here at the end of those stitch lines. So let me get my shape tool back. And now we're going to connect this line and have it conform to the top of the dog bone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the line, and I'm going to add a point on this side, do the same thing on the other side, add a point, and I'm going to take these bottom points and I'm just going to move them here to the center. I'm going to right click, add a point, put it here, kind of straighten out the line. And then over here, what I want to do is right click, add a point there, move it up into the upper arch here of that dog bone. If I right click on this point and click line, you can see that it makes a nice little curve there. And over here I need to bring this down a little bit because I want to make sure that it's inside this satin stitch later on so that you can't see anything. Let's go over here on the other side. I'll zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing over here. Get the shape tool again. I want to bring this down so that it's inside the dog bone area here. Right click on the line to add a point, to bring it over here, straighten it up a little bit. right click on the line again, add a point, move this one up into the curve of the dog bone. And if I right click on this one and click line, you can see that it made a nice little shape there so that everything is going to be covered. Let me zoom back out again. And I'm going to select this. And I'm just going to move it out so you can see what we did. So see, now the bottom is connected and it conforms to the top of that dog bone. Let me get it back in place. Now we can use this as the placement for that fabric that's going to go on the top half of the towel holder. After we place that fabric though, we need to tack it down. So with that same step here selected, go up to copy, paste, and I'm going to come down to the palette, choose any color that's a different color, right click on it, and now I have my tack down. So one more design step that I need is the step that's going to tack the fabric onto the back side of the entire design. So what I can do is come over to the sequence window and I can pick that tack down step that we created earlier that was going to tack down the fiber form. So I'm just going to select it, copy, paste, and now I need to take this step and I can drag it down so that it is right before the satin stitch that's going to stitch right here and then move on to the dog bone step. One other thing that I want to add to my design are my dog's names here in the dog bone. So I'm going to select the text tool, click in the design space. It opens up the text window. You can choose from any of the built-in fonts in the ITH Designer Software, or you could go to your true type fonts on your computer. I'm going to use one of the built-in fonts. I'm using Diana VS, and I'm going to type in Rosie and Lily and hit apply. Now you can do a little editing here. I kind of think there is too big of spaces between Rosie, the and sign, and between Lily. So I'm just going to select one of these, that little node, and I'm going to move Lily closer. And if I select this one, I can move the and sign and Lily closer to Rosie. Just kind of play with it, get it to look how you want it to look. And then I'm going to put it centered in my design. Of course, it needs to be moved down, but I'm liking that size. And let me get it in position to how I like it. And I'm just going to change the color by picking a color down at the color palette at the bottom of the screen and right clicking on it. We need to do a little reordering of our design. Let's go into the sequence window and click on that first step. That's our placement for our fiber form. We place it down, it gets tacked down. The next step is the placement for the fabric for the top half of the towel holder. We place it, it gets tacked down. Then there's our quilting, but our next step is placing the fabric on the back side of the hoop and getting it tacked down. We got to finish the dog bone before we do that part. So let's drop down here and grab the placement for the fabric for the dog bone, the tack down of the fabric for the dog bone, and the text that we added. With all those selected, I'm going to left click and I'm going to drag them up so they come after the quilting. So let's go back to the quilting. That's finished. The next thing is the placement for the dog bone fabric. Tack that fabric down. Do our names. Now put the back piece of fabric on. It's going to do the satin stitching of the top half and then the satin stitching of the dog bone. So now our design is in the correct order, and let's just take a look at this slow redraw to see how it's going to stitch. To create an SVG file to pre-cut the fiber form, click on the first step, which is the placement step. Go up to Copy, Paste. Then with that step selected, right-click on it, Convert to Artwork. Click on the saw blade, which is the cutter. Here's the SVG file. Click Save. Name it, save it where you want to, and you can either save it as an SVG or there are other cutter formats that you can use. You can even save it as a PDF so that you could hand cut it. And that's how you create your SVG file.